Here's some encouraging news in the effort to combat air pollution in California. Some truck manufacturers have agreed to a deal to ban the sale of new diesel big rigs by 2036. The plan aims to kickstart the industry's transition to electric commercial trucks. According to the California Air Resources Board, the big rigs account for nearly 1/3 nitrogen oxide pollution in our nation's largest state, the Golden State, at least most populated. For more on this, Tim Pucko is climate correspondent for the Washington Post, and he joins us now from D.C. Tim, what more can you tell us about this deal in California to phase out those diesel big rigs?
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's a pretty big step. California has been pushing for new, more stringent rules for trucks. As you alluded to, they're a huge source of pollution in the transportation sector. We've seen electrification take over across vehicles of all types. And California's position, and backed up by a lot of environmental groups, is that the technology is far enough along that these trucks exist, and that government, because of the imperative of climate change, should push the industry towards adopting them as much as possible. So California earlier this year approved a ban on sales of new diesel big rigs starting in 2036. And part of this deal, there's some regulatory stuff, but the real big headline move is that the big engine and truck manufacturers are going to support it. They're going to be ready in 2036 in California, and probably a few other states will see about this to have only electric or maybe hydrogen sales, no more conventional engines.
Hydrogen is really interesting.
So as y'all know, none of us truck drivers support this junk. There's no way they're going to have enough charging stations, enough power to be able to charge all the semis on the road. So guess what? We're just going to stop going to California. That's what we're going to do.
Infrastructure, you need chargers. So I'm wondering if that's also part of the conversation. Are they going to start to kind of like put together a countrywide charging kind of setup for these big rigs?
Yes, there's been a lot of the money approved by Congress to do that. The president, White House, Democrats in D.C. especially, but with some help here and there from Republicans, have helped push for a lot of money to expand charging networks nationwide. California, one of the reasons that they're a leader in rulemakings like this and in deal makings with the auto industry is that California already has a lot of that. EV adoption has been faster in California than in other states. If you drive around in California, you'll see chargers of all types everywhere. The other thing that's happening is that the charge times that you're talking about, they're highly variable and they're improving a lot. There's a lot of technology out there to get these charges done faster. And yes, I think that the important point here is for everyone, not just Californians, is that if something like this is going to happen nationally, the trucking industry says they're ready to do it, but they need more of the infrastructure that you're talking about, and they want even more federal support to make it happen.
And just to clarify, it is a ban on selling diesel-powered trucks in California come 2036. It's not that diesel-powered trucks like these big rigs are going to be banned on the streets of California. It's just you can't sell them anymore within the borders of the state.
That's right. Regulators have recognized that there's typically a need for a phase-in. You can't just get rid of all the trucks at once. I believe by the 2040s, though, the plan is to start doing that, to make sure that after 20 years of lead time, that then, yes, eventually, the only thing on the road are zero-emission trucks.
I know that initially there was pushback from the industry, and part of their argument was, if you do this, people will just hang on to their diesel trucks longer, and that will be counterproductive because you'll have many filthy diesel trucks belching out bad things into the air. What made them come around?
Well, it is a tricky thing. A lot of these engines, especially for like the long haul rigs that we're talking about, they're built to last forever. They're built to be rebuilt, to be fine tuned over time. And so part of what California has done here is use its regulatory power to push the industry to break out of that cycle and to actually adopt, all new trucks, all new technology. California has special provisions in the Clean Air Act because they were doing environmental regulation even before the federal government was. And so under those special provisions, they often get permission from Washington. They can do this, it's written into the law, to have rules that are more stringent than what Washington is requiring for the rest of the country. And there are a lot of other typically liberal-leaning states that will have the power also to adopt whatever rules California has. So California has used that power to kind of say, well, hey, we're going to make even stronger rules. The trucking industry, what they want the least, and this is true for many automakers, is different rules in California from different rules of the rest of the country. And if they know California is heading in one direction, California California can kind of push them. Well, let's make a deal. California is giving up things here. There will be some lighter regulations that they'll adopt as part of this. Mostly very technical stuff. And so by doing that, by having some give, by giving into a full national standard in some of the finer regulations, then the trucking industry said, okay, we'll do a deal with you and we can commit to this bigger picture thing.
It's really interesting. It's like you pointed out, Tim, California, so goes the rest of the country. And they have been successful in pushing for regulations on many fronts that help the environment. Also, Port of Los Angeles, the busiest port in the country, they deal with a lot of trucks. So they have, a particular reason to want to rein this in.
Yeah.
Tim Picco, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.